Hello, hello, and welcome, or should I say ho, 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 Christmas cousins. I'm Cousin Chad, and normally we'd be joined by my cousin Seth, but he's off on some mega business meeting with world and business leaders, so he just couldn't make it today. But more importantly, we said who would be someone that has that kind of star power and charisma to be here instead of cousin Seth, and we found him. Yes, one of everyone's favorite Christmas podcasts. We have Christmas Pasts. Brian Earl. Brian, thank you for coming on the show again.
Oh, thank you so much. Thanks for having me back, and Merry Christmas to you and everyone listening.
Merry Christmas. Thank you. Now, Brian, you've been on the show before. We went over, discussed a lot of what you do on your podcast and some of the things we learned. I'm a huge fan. I listen to all of your episodes.
Thank you.
And a recent instant classic I urge everyone to check out is your Rankin and Bass special, which you just put out.
Yeah.
That must have been a fun one for you, Brian.
That was a lot of fun. I mean, part of the fun of doing the podcast is that I get to have a lot of very interesting conversations with interesting people. And for that one, I actually got to talk to Rick Goldschmidt, who's the official historian and biographer of Rankin and Bass. And so he knows them personally and was able to tell the story from that perspective. So it was a lot of fun, and I'm glad you liked the episode.
Yeah, it's super cool. It even kind of personified Rankin and Bass more, because I think of them almost like Kleenex or Xerox, like brand names. You almost forget that they're real people.
Yeah.
And here's a guy who just called up, Bass or Rankin, I forget one of them. And the guy said, send me some chapters and we'll go from there. And it all worked out and became the biographer. It's very cool.
Exactly, yeah.
What a story. Yeah. And he kind of followed them throughout the year. So I urge everybody, you cover a lot in 11 minutes. Like, I think that's what the episode was, 11 minutes.
Yeah,
We have some asides on this show that Cousin Seth may go on for 11 minutes about something totally unrelated to anything. So I like how succinct and well produced, and I'm really a big fan. And I know this is your busy season, so you're joining us. But what we're doing here today, Brian, it's almost like a public service, because we're taking you through a trip back in time to your favorite Christmases ever. And it's a public service to the audience at large, because everybody gets to enjoy it with you, and maybe it'll rekindle some of their own memories. Maybe it will spark some new traditions that they'll want to do. And at the very least, it's a cozy time to just break away and get enmeshed in a really great Christmas. So this could be your favorite Christmas ever, or most people have an amalgam of different Christmases that they put together. And it's interesting. I'm seeing a lot in the same time frame, age range, and I don't want to say it because I want to see if you fall in there as well. So let's get right into it, because Brian, you obviously love Christmas. You have your Christmas Past podcast, one of the top podcasts really worldwide. I mean, you have huge acclaim from it and a great listenership. You're being too modest. I see you making faces. Look, I know you may not have the 40-something million daily listeners we have here on the Christmas Cousins podcast. Yeah, 40 million, no big deal. That's our own count, Brian. It may or may not be accurate. But I know that you're, a figure. You've kind of become a tradition for people's Christmas is yourself, your show, because people wait for the new episodes, and it's part of it. It's part of the whole fabric. So let's start from the beginning with your favorite Christmas ever. Are we talking about a specific year and age, or are there a few different years combined?
Yeah, no, this is a specific Christmas. And I should preface all of this by saying I wasn't prepared for how much anxiety this question was going to cause in me, because I started mining the depths of my memories of my favorite Christmases from childhood, which were all fantastic. But if I'm honest about it, they all kind of blend together. It's kind of hard to tell which one was when I was 6 and which one when I was 8. And there are plenty of photographs in my mom's photo albums and all of that. But really, most of my memories from those are not specific things that happened one Christmas. It's more these sense memories of what it was like to, drive across town to my grandparents on the night before and all of that. And so all of that would have been really fun to talk about, but there's really no one thing about it that made one of them the best Christmas ever. So I had to go a little farther forward in time. And so
I like that. We put you to work, Brian.
Sorry?
We put you to work. I like that.
Work, yeah. And so this was, and again, like favorite, and that's kind of a hard word. Superlatives are always difficult, right? Because how can you really say one is better than the other when you're dealing with apples and oranges? Certainly the most memorable Christmas I had was when I was, I believe, in my late 20s or early 30s.
Okay.
So I'm 50 years old now, so it's still quite in the past. But it was when I was an adult.
Wow, you're 50 now, Brian. We need a whole episode on your skincare routine, because you look much younger than that. So
it wasn't clean living, I can tell you that.
That's right.
I guess I'm just lucky.
Oh, that'll be some good episodes then. We'll do that in the off season, Brian. Look for an email. So you're saying it was your late 20s, early 30s, which is interesting, because most people I'm finding between the 8 to 12 year range is when they're finding their favorite Christmases, but yours was later as an adult.
Yep. And so what happened was, we were living in the Northeast, in Boston, south of Boston, in the suburbs, and
Okay.
my wife was from Long Island, and so
Okay.
she had a lot of family down there. We met. She was doing coming to school here in Boston. That's how we met, got married, etc. So Christmas was always one of those things like which one of our families are we going to spend the holidays with?
Right.
It tended to be mine by default because I come from a large family. I'm one of five children. Each of my parents is one of six children. So there are lots of aunts and uncles and cousins or whatever very close by. And my wife's family is much smaller. And by that point, we had been spread out a little bit. She had a brother on the West Coast and one down south. So it kind of made sense that we would spend most Christmases with my family.
I like this though. This is a whole Boston versus New York
It is,
Christmas and
yes.
then baseball. I mean, this
We're
could have
not even
gotten
talking
ugly.
baseball yet.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay.
um, However, every couple of years we would go down to New York, and then the first time you try something like that, then it becomes a thing. Well, you came down last year. Why aren't you coming this year? And so there was a period where we were just alternating back and forth every year. And even one year we did Christmas morning here in Boston, or there in Boston. I'm in California now. And then drove down to Long Island. It was about a
Oh,
4.5 hour drive so that we could do
wow.
Christmas dinner with her family. And so we got tired of all of this because we were basically serving other people's interests instead of our own. We
Right.
said, we kind of want to go on vacation for Christmas. Well, maybe see Christmas somewhere that isn't Boston or Long Island, because those are the only Christmases we've ever known. It's a big world out there. Let's try something else. And
Right.
so we announced, much to the dismay of both sides of our family, that we're going to go to the Bahamas for Christmas.
Wow. Right.
Now, it was more about taking a Christmas vacation than celebrating Christmas elsewhere because it was just us, like where there was going to be no family gatherings or anything like that. But it
Mhm.
was going to be in a new environment. And so we landed in Nassau, spent a couple of days there just doing touristy stuff. If you've ever been to Nassau or anywhere in the
Yes.
Bahamas, Nassau is the touristy place. You want to sort of get away from that as soon as you can.
Right. Right.
And so we went to Harbor Island, which is a little
I've been
island.
there.
You have been
Yes,
to Harbor?
I
Yeah.
have. Yes. And so,
Uh,
Brian, this was when, like a week before Christmas, the week leading up to Christmas?
Must have been 3, 4 days before Christmas.
Okay,
It
gotcha.
was, yeah,
Okay, so
in the
you were
time
there for a
leading up.
week, a full week?
Yeah, we were there for a full week.
It would be funny if we were there together, unwittingly, you know.
It would have been.
Yes. Okay,
Um,
so for about a week, right leading up to Christmas. Okay, so maybe
yeah,
the 20th, 21st, something like that.
something like that. Yeah.
Okay.
And yeah, so we spent a good amount of time there. Harbor Island, by the way, is pretty close to Eleuthera, so that's where Lenny Kravitz is from. So you can't really spend much time on Harbor Island without hearing about someone who's cousins with Lenny Kravitz or something like that. It's just one of the
Right.
things people say. But for the most part, the time we were spending there didn't really feel very Christmassy, although it is.
Hmm.
You see Christmas decorations, but Christmas there is just very, very different, as we discovered.
Sure.
So one of the things that was we were going to do is a very small gift exchange on Christmas morning, just my wife and me,
Just,
and
so
we
it's just
couldn't.
right, just the two of you.
Right,
Right.
and we
So
couldn't
you
pack a lot.
can I just say though, because so we're talking about this whole setting, which is so interesting that right away this would be your one of your favorite Christmases ever,
Mhm.
because you're so used to cold Boston, freezing cold, maybe
Yes.
snowy Boston,
Yeah.
or Long Island, which would be cold, maybe gray or snow.
Yeah.
But you're talking a traditional in terms of pop culture Christmas. But
Hmm.
now it's in the tropics. Now it's more that tropical steel drum Jimmy Buffett, Mele
Yes.
Kalikimaka Christmas.
Exactly.
Interesting. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Um, and so what we did on Christmas morning is we did a really small gift exchange because we didn't want to pack a lot of stuff. Um, and there was a thing at my work. It was one of these like fundraiser, silent auction kind of things. And if you won, these musicians would record an arrangement of any song that you wanted.
Hmm.
And so the song that my wife and I danced to at our wedding was "That's All," that was made popular by Nat King Cole and others. And so someone had recorded that, and this was back in the days of CDs, so I had it burnt or whatever the term is
Right.
onto a CD. Gave that to her, and it's a one of a kind. There's only one recording of this arrangement of the song in
Oh
existence,
wow.
and it's also I thought that was like a nice special kind of gift, and also one that packed nicely.
But
Um,
what kind of version was it? Was it because
Kind
you're
of
going
like
to
a
the
jazz
Bahamas?
arrangement. It was,
Okay.
I think, jazz, cello, and piano, cello, and vocals.
Okay. It would have been cool like Junkanoo or reggae version. You know, go
Yeah,
full
yeah.
tropical,
Well, we'll get
steel
to
drums,
Junkanoo.
right?
There was plenty of that on our vacation.
Yes, I'm sure.
Um, and as you know from being in Harbor Island, one of the ways people get around are on golf carts,
Hmm.
because not a lot of people drive proper cars there. It's mostly golf carts. So we rented some
Right.
golf carts and took them down to the beach that was on the other side of the island. It's a very
Hmm.
long, thin island, so it's not hard to get around, but it's fun to
Right.
ride golf carts. Um, And again, as you probably know, there is this one beach where all of the sand is very pink. And
Hmm.
that's because of all the crustaceans that have become part of the sand. So there's a very beautiful pink sand beach. And there was a man that we met a couple of days before who has a bunch of horses, and he
Hmm.
does horse rides
Oh wow.
along the beach. And so that's how we spent Christmas morning, was riding horses on the beach as the sun was coming up.
Oh my
Um,
gosh. You're
and
not in
then,
Boston anymore. What a
nope, definitely
difference.
not
Wow.
Boston anymore.
Yeah.
And
So Christmas morning you meet them, you do the gift exchange first.
yep.
Oh, so how was your wife's reaction to the gift?
She really loved the idea. We didn't have a CD player in the
Oh
room
no.
with us or anything, so I said, "You'll have to listen to this later on," but I wanted to have something for you to open. There might have
It
been another
would
gift too. I don't really remember, and I don't remember what she got me.
it would have been cool, Brian, if she, because your most recent episode is about the Magi,
Mhm.
if she sold your CD player to buy you a gift and you sold something to buy
Yeah,
her a CD player, like the gift of
yeah,
the
the O.
Magi.
Henry story.
Yeah, that would have been
Yeah,
cool. But that didn't happen. What did she get you? You don't remember?
I don't remember. I'm
We'll edit
sure it
this
was
out in
lovely.
case she listens. Don't worry. We'll edit this out. Yeah.
Okay.
Brian remembers all of it. Yes. Okay. So,
So we went and did our horse ride on the beach.
mhm.
The rest of the day, I honestly don't remember what we did, because they do celebrate Christmas on Harbor Island, but it's much more of like a churchy kind of thing.
Okay.
Most people, while we were riding horses, were in church.
Wow.
Um, and I do remember when we were coming back, or sometime during the day, we saw a lot of people kind of coming back from church, dressed up very nicely, singing songs, things like that. But for the most part, there wasn't really much activity. I think people were just kind of going home.
Right.
We were staying at this very nice, I guess now would be an Airbnb, but something like that. We're staying at somebody's house. Um, and it was, I think that the day was that, oh, then we went out to dinner. Some friends of ours knew that we were going to Harbor Island, found a nice restaurant, and they'd given us a gift certificate
Oh,
for a
nice.
really nice um, dinner. And we're sitting in these things, they're almost like a cabana style thing, like little tents or huts or whatever that we sat in to have our dinner. There are
Hmm.
little geckos, like actual lizards, were like
Yeah. Yeah.
climbing on the walls of it.
Mhm.
So really, it was a Christmas unlike anything that we had ever experienced before.
Wow. So it was so unique and unusual to you that made it such a special or memorable Christmas too.
Exactly. And, we've never done
Fascinating.
anything like that since. Um,
Have you done it since?
no, because now, let's see, now that shortly after that was when some of my siblings started having children.
Okay.
Um, and then, yeah, for, any number of reasons, we just stayed in the Boston area. Now, lately, I mean, again, even though I'm 50 years old, I have a 4-year-old son. So that
Hmm.
has changed the calculus of our Christmas travels quite a
Oh
bit.
yeah.
So
Hmm.
we don't,
For
we don't really
sure.
go much of anywhere these days, but I'm looking forward to traveling again.
So this
So,
one in the Bahamas, though, when you did like, so let's if we can get back to like Christmas Eve, because
yeah.
Christmas morning you did the gift exchange
Mhm.
and the horseback ride on the beach, which is
Mhm.
very non-traditional.
Yeah.
Um, but what was Christmas Eve like? Did you have dinner? Was it conch chowder? Was it a traditional dinner? How
What
did
did
you
we
handle
do?
that? Rum punches, which sounds fantastic.
There was this nice restaurant that was in town, like, yeah, everything's outdoor dining and all of that. I remember
Yeah.
eating a lot of, I forget what the fish, it wasn't conch, but it was maybe snapper or something like that, where they
Right. Grouper.
could have been grouper, whatever the
Okay.
local, but I just remember like they fried the thing whole and serve it to you with the head still on it. And everyone there tells you, like, oh, look, you have to make sure you don't swallow a bone, that kind of stuff.
Right.
I don't think there was anything special. There was a club, like a dance club, nightclub,
Hmm.
where I think we had gone there just to check things out, maybe have a drink or something like that on Christmas Eve, but it really was not like a big special thing.
Right.
Um, the special Christmas thing is the day after Christmas, and
Oh,
you
okay.
said the magic word already, the Junkanoo.
Hmm.
Um, so Junkanoo is, I guess, equivalent to Boxing Day. It's a large celebration that comes the day after Christmas. Um, I did an episode on Boxing Day, the whole history there, like what
Yes.
does the box actually mean? There's any number of reasons why a culture would have a large celebration the day after Christmas. Maybe
Brian, can I say, because I did listen to your episode and I was getting angry that we don't have that in America. It is
I
so
know
frustrating. How
you
can
would
we get this movement spearheaded?
you
What
would be
should we do?
surprised,
Yeah.
because it
Because,
sounds
yeah,
very much like American Thanksgiving,
right,
where not only is it a large celebration for its own sake, but most of the way that you spend it is just like chowing down and watching sports and like hanging out with your friends. Like, so I don't know
right.
why we don't do it.
Well, not only that, Brian, for people like you who had to travel a quarter of your Christmas day between Boston and New York, you could have done that knowing the next day was totally vegging out, watching
Yeah.
Christmas movies, eating whatever. So
Yeah.
it's needed. I think we need to get our collective audiences together and get this going.
Hmm.
Boxing Day passed by Congress for 2025. If not 2024, we have a couple weeks.
It is doable. I don't know. I think I don't know what it would take to make something like that happen. I mean, so many people, especially this year, where Christmas is going to be on a Wednesday, are probably going to take off Thursday and Friday. I certainly am.
Right.
It's one of those things. It's sort of like at some point the day before Thanksgiving is going to become a national holiday too, because like nobody even if you
Right.
go to work, you take off at noon, right?
Right. And the people that are there aren't in the mood to work anyway.
Right.
So,
Right.
yeah, I think you're right. And the fact is that for anyone to have to take off the 26th and 27th, use those as actual vacation days, no, those should be for another time. That should just be closed.
Right.
So,
Exactly.
England's been doing it for a long, long time, and they're
Yep.
still around. So I
Yep.
think we can do it here. That's my movement. But so you were saying, okay, so Junkanoo Day in the Bahamas is like Boxing Day elsewhere.
Yeah, but it is a major celebration, and it's sort of the main celebration. I mean, Christmas again because the Bahamas are it's a Christian culture, like a very strong one. I think Christmas, the celebration itself of Christmas, is a lot more religiously focused and not it's not like the secular cultural celebration that it's become in America.
Right.
The big celebration is the day after, and that's the day where it's just like partying and drinking in the streets, and um, so that next day was Junkanoo. The daytime wasn't, I don't think, anything especially special, but at the end of the day they have a huge parade and then a street fair and a street party.
Oh, cool.
And so everyone went down to the town center, and it's the kind of thing where like all the kids from school, like, oh, here comes the first grade class, and they're all dressed up and they do these things with they take a beer bottle and they tie a rope on it that has little beads at the end of it. So when you twist the beer bottle back and forth, it makes almost like a, what do you call those? That thing that, remember in Karate Kid, the little drum that you turn back and forth. And
Oh yeah, yeah. Oh yeah, right. Where you run between your
yeah,
hands. Right. Oh, that's
exactly.
funny. Okay.
And it makes it sound like click, click, click. And so there's actually a brand of beer called Click, and that's
Oh
why it's called
yes.
that, is
Oh
because of that.
really? I did not
Um,
know that. I have
so
had the beer,
yeah,
but I did not know why it was named that.
so there's a lot of that, like noisemakers and ritual disguises, very very Mardi Gras, lots of colorful costumes, lots
Right.
of just joy in the streets and all of that kind of thing. And it was unlike anything I've ever experienced.
Yeah. And
And
not religious at all, or was it
I
Christmas decorated, Christmas colors, or was it just took place on the day after Christmas?
it just took place on the day after Christmas.
Wow.
And I've actually done some research on why is it called Junkanoo. I think there's like competing theories. It might be named after someone named like John Kenkis or something. There's like
Oh,
different
okay.
translations or different reasons behind why it is called that. But it's
No one knows for sure. Interesting.
yeah, well, maybe someone knows, but I haven't found who that
Right.
person is, or at least I haven't researched it enough. Um, so yeah, so that was Junkanoo,
Interesting.
just this
Wow.
big, big, very raucous, very loud. Like everybody is downtown. Like no one's
Right.
in their house. Everyone's out in the street celebrating with the community. Just having this parade, and then afterwards, everyone's just kind of there's like a fish fry down by the water. I mean, just
Right.
very, very Bahamian kind of
Yeah.
stuff, right? Like everything you think of when you think of the Bahamas is happening all
For
right
real,
there.
not just for tourists. They're
Yeah,
actually really doing
exactly,
it, which is really
exactly.
cool. And that's why it's nice to go to a harbor island where it's a little bit off the beaten path
Hmm.
to see that.
Yeah.
So, are there any of the traditions you took? Because for it to stand out amongst your great Christmases and your Christmases during your formative years, are there any traditions that you have brought home with you and still do to this day, or is it something you kind of hide from your family because you don't want to be like, wow, our best Christmas ever is when we weren't with you? So,
No, I think maybe definitely the gift that I gave my wife. We it was later on that we decided every year for gifts we choose a theme, and every gift has to fall within that theme. And it's partly to make sure that we're not just like buying stuff off Amazon. Like we definitely
right,
have to make it meaningful in some way. In that year we had a gift theme. I don't know if there's a direct connection, but I'm just noticing those two. Pardon me,
right. Oh, that's
two data points.
interesting. Okay. But let me just ask you because so you love this and it was so different and that's part of what you liked about it and you got to really relax and not go
Yes.
around and not serve other people, but just not selfishly, but just
Mhm.
self-servingly serve yourselves basically. But
Yeah.
But you became to love Christmas, and you have this podcast because I just want to touch really quickly on your formative years, Christmases of
Mhm.
your youth. Was there something in your youth that stood out that just made you love Christmas so much, or was it just every year the magic, like we were discussing before we went on air? Now, this time of year, everywhere you go to a big box store, there's music, there's lights. It's so
Yeah.
fun. All that just quotidian stuff that's normally just bland and banal is now fun and festive and
Yeah.
joyous. Was it anything in particular?
It was like I really didn't have a choice but
Hmm.
to love Christmas. And part
Hmm.
of the reason for that is, again, I come from a large family. I grew up on a cul-de-sac with like every one of my neighbors had kids my age.
Oh wow.
So I mean, my Christmases were just very heavily populated. There were just so many people. And this was during a time, again, I'm 50, so this is like this in the 70s and 80s. Um, I guess it's still the same now, but there was a particular brand of 70s and 80s Christmas where there was a lot of like handmade crafts and things that my mom made stockings for all of us on her
Huh.
sewing machine, all matching. I still have mine to this day.
Oh
So
cool.
I think my love for Christmas was not only all the magic and the gifts, of course, and all that kind of thing, but just like the handcraftedness, the how much of a person's like my mother's personality and love for Christmas sort of came to life through all the things that she made. We
Right.
have a homemade advent calendar that she made, and all kinds of other decorations like that. And a lot of the activities I was into, like the Cub Scouts and this and that, like we all had Christmas parties, and so it seemed very much like kind of like how things are for me now as an adult, really, where the Christmas season is like every day was like something, something, something. And as a child, all of that is really doing nothing but building the anticipation. Like, oh my goodness, Christmas is coming, and it's 3 weeks away, and I can't wait. And I think that's something that you sort of lose. It's like all the anticipation for all the gifts that you're going to get. You get to a point where you don't really care about the gifts anymore. And so the anticipation kind of it reinterprets itself. Right now, it's more the
Right.
anticipation of just basking in all of that magic,
Right. Right.
triggering all of those warm memories from the past, and it basically could care less what if anything anyone gives me for a gift.
Right.
Um,
But now you have a 4-year-old son. You said a son.
yeah, yeah,
So
and
you see
so
it now all through his eyes, which is really magical.
and the thing is, and I'm a little bit worried about this. He seems to like Halloween more than Christmas. Um,
He's rebelling against you.
he'll learn. He'll learn. But he's even liking a lot of the same toys that I liked as a kid. He wants Transformers this year, and
Oh, that's
Transformers
funny.
were obviously really big when I was still, I guess, in my middle childhood in the 80s.
Hmm.
So it is nice to see all of it come full circle, and it's a bit
Uh-huh.
like reliving it, but also a bit like not reliving it, or at least
Right.
coming at it from another perspective.
Yeah, it is funny, right? Like with my son, I'll get him, like a Mario or a Nintendo thing, and it's like
Hmm.
this might as well have been this might as well have been the '80s or something.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
it is fun when that comes around. So that is interesting. So was there something with all these Christmases that that were so great and made it every day fun for you? And obviously that did, unwittingly or not, make it where now you're like every day you're doing something Christmassy, whether it's for the
Yeah.
podcast or for fun. So that certainly influenced you. Was there for you one gift besides the one that your wife gave you in the Bahamas,
Mhm.
but as a youth that really just stood out as like the ultimate gift? Like for many people, it's the Nintendo NES.
Yeah. The one thing I remember it was a child's magic set. I mean, just your
Mm.
classic, torn and restored paper kind of, like these like self-working tricks. You don't have to like learn any magic for it.
Yeah.
But early in the season, we would get these huge catalogs.
Hmm.
They're not really around anymore, right? But these
It's
things
a
are like the
shame.
size of
Yeah.
a phone book. And there was one that came from a northeastern chain called Service Merchandise, and they had this set in it called like Chinese Illusions of Magic. It had this kind of catalog copy that they probably wouldn't have nowadays, like Mystic Secrets of the Orient revealed for
Right.
the first time. And I really wanted this present. I don't remember how old I was, maybe 8, something like that.
Hmm.
And that Christmas morning, I'd opened up all the gifts, right? And there was one
Hmm.
box left, and it was about the size of a magic set.
Oh wow.
This is it, because I've been talking about Chinese illusions of magic. And so then I opened up the gift, and it wasn't
Oh.
Chinese illusions of magic. I don't even remember what it was. I just
Oh
remember being
no.
crushed,
Oh
just
no.
absolutely crushed. And then the next year I had basically forgotten about it, but the first gift I opened up was that. And then like all the
Ah.
memories of everything I wanted about it
And you still
came
wanted
back.
it, which is good. So your parents must have noticed that
They
and seen
noticed for
how
sure.
forlorn you were. Oh wow, that's interesting.
And
And they
and I
waited a year.
I kept that all
Mm-hmm.
throughout my childhood.
Mm-hmm.
Um, And I remember must have been my mid 20s when my mom sold the house that we grew up in, and we were cleaning out the attic, and it was
Oh,
still there, like after
no
all
way.
those years. Um, and I that might have been the only Christmas present that I remember having kept that long.
Wow.
I'm sure
So
there
you
were
you
others,
saw,
but
of course you had to like go through it. Now,
yeah,
will you be able to perform a magic trick for us, Brian, right now?
right now,
Right now.
that'd be hard to do over a podcast.
Right. Okay. So that right that didn't translate into you becoming a magician. That year long
No, no.
wait I thought might have. But so that's interesting. You know, it's funny. As soon as you mentioned that, Brian, I completely forgot that I got a magic set when I was around 8 or so and absolutely loved it. It was like the cards and the rings that you had to do,
Yeah, yeah,
and it
yeah.
must have been something about the age or maybe the time frame. So that's very interesting. And I
Ooh.
actually kind of forgot about it, but that's funny. So with both, I know we're going to start wrapping up soon. I just want to know, so if you could relive any Christmas moment, whether it's the Bahamas vacation
Mhm.
or of your youth, that you could relive and go back to, is there a specific one? And even if there isn't, just pick one. What would that be that you could relive?
Yeah, I mean, surprisingly, I mean, I want to say it would be waking up on Christmas morning with my five siblings and how we all came downstairs, because all that was great. But really,
Hmm.
where my mind is going is Christmas Eve, where we would
Hmm.
all get into the station wagon, right? In the 70s and
Uh-huh.
80s, we had the Chevy Caprice Classic with the wood panel sides. You know, we could
Uh-huh.
you could fit like 25 people in one of those things. We'd
Oh
all
yeah,
go
because
across.
everybody would just jam on top of each other, no
Yeah, they
seatbelts. You
had the
just
roof
throw them
rack and the trailer hitch. You could
a
have a
couple
kid sledding behind
kids
it.
on the roof. Yeah,
Uh,
right.
And so during that time, it was not uncommon for there to be a little dusting of snow on the ground, or maybe even some rain, so the streets were all slick and reflecting the Christmas lights. And so the
Oh,
drive
cool.
across town to my grandparents' lights with grandparents' house, seeing the lights, and we'd have Christmas carols going. And we get to my grandparents' house, this is my mom's parents. They had a tiny, tiny house, like seriously, I don't even like 700 square feet or something like that.
Hmm.
And we would all pack into it. And there would be a fire going and a little Christmas tree. And we'd all sing Christmas carols. And it's like
Oh, cool.
everything you think of, like almost things that if I told you all the stuff that we did, you'd think I was making some of it up because it's just
Right.
like all the stuff that you'd see on a sitcom of people celebrating
Right.
Christmas. You know,
Like
just
a Norman Rockwell painting.
pretty much, yeah. We'd all go
Wow.
around the room and say what we're thankful for,
Oh, I
and then
love
it
it.
was, we'd all, by the end of the night, we'd go home and like that was when, okay, like we've sort of had this pre-Christmas, like with
Hmm.
good food and a fire and all this talking about what we hope Santa's going to bring us, and just drift off to sleep sort of in the glow of all of that and the anticipation of what came. And then like, the next day you kind of run down, you open up all your gifts and you go running around. Like and I don't know. I don't know at what age I was when it really clicked for me that it's more the buildup. It's the season. Like that's
Right.
what
Right.
Christmas is. I think
Hmm.
when you're a kid, you're waiting for the day, and then you come to realize, oh no, the day comes and goes, and you just forget
Yes.
about it. It's really the magic of everything leading up to the day.
Yeah, that's it. Wow, that is awesome. I wish, I don't know if you have photos or anything you want to share that we could do. I'd love to see photos of this house at grandma's with the fire. It just sounds magical to me. I would love
I'll
to
have to
try to
ask
go
my
back.
mom. I don't have any
Okay.
here in California with me, but my mom probably has some.
If you do, even a cell phone grab, I would just love it. The picture of the little house, but full and
Yeah,
overflowing with warmth and charm and love and
yeah,
festive
yeah,
cheer.
yeah.
I mean, that's really cool. And like you said, it's almost hard to believe because it sounds so idyllic and so much like a movie, but it
Yeah.
had really happened to you.
Hmm.
So I love it. That is amazing. But Brian, thank you so much for taking the time. I know how busy you are this year, this time of year, and sharing these traditions with us and your Christmas memories. And we went from Boston down to Long Island Expressway to Long Island, and then we
Hmm.
flew into Nassau,
Uh-huh.
went over to Harbor Island. We covered a lot of ground in a half
We
hour,
sure did.
Brian. That was
In
awesome.
time and geography.
We certainly did. So we're going to load Brian back up in the station wagon, get him out of here, and everybody check out Brian Christmas Past podcast. If you haven't heard it yet, you will love it. If you know what I'm talking about, you've heard it. I'm sure you love it as well as I do. I listen all the time. Check it out. And you can always write us christmascousinspod@gmail.com and Instagram and Facebook Christmas Cousins Pod. Brian, I can't thank you enough. Thank you so much. Happy holidays, Merry Christmas, and I will hope to see you again soon.
You as well. Thanks for having me back. Merry
Thank
Christmas.
you, Brian.